Hello friends. Today I am doing something that brings me some slight pain because I genuinely like this YouTuber. I agree with, I would say probably about 90% of the things that she says, but I also believe that everybody deserves critique. I believe everyone deserves to be told if they're wrong. Now, I'm not saying 100% she is wrong because the things that I'm going to say are at least slightly subjective. So I can't say for 100% certain that she's wrong. I know I always put on this air of like, oh, I'm smart, you're stupid. But, that's not actually the case. This is, generally speaking, my opinion. Now, I don't mean any hate for her. In case she watches this video, I'm going to keep it 100. I don't hate her or her content, and I agree, usually, with what she has to say. But sometimes she either won't get the joke, or she'll misunderstand what's being said to her. So, I just want to go through and, I'm going to cut this up because her videos, the 4 videos that I picked out are kind of long. So, you're going to get, very cut up versions of these videos.
Greetings, guys, girls, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video.
Alright, thanks for paying your rent this month. Go ahead and sign here. It's just gonna ask you a couple of questions. A tip? I'm not tipping my landlord, and so I really needed to talk about it. And so what we're gonna do today is talk about it. But before we get into it, I would like to take a moment to thank today's patron of the day, Elias. I appreciate you hugely. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/studycat, or click the top link in the description. If you want to hear more about it, then stick around until the end. Alright, so yeah, I can't really put into words this TikTok, because it's kind of unbelievable, honestly, and so I'm going to play it for you, and then you'll see what we're about to get ourselves into. Alright, thanks for paying your rent this month. Go ahead and sign here. It's just going to ask you a couple of questions. A tip? I'm not tipping my landlord. So you'll tip a barista who pours overpriced coffee into a cup, but not the guy who's on call 24/7 to make sure you have a safe home? I'm not tipping you. This isn't a restaurant. Okay, so you'll tip an extra 25% for somebody to carry you a basket of chicken wings, but you won't tip someone who responds for after-hours emergency calls? Yep. Well, I guess when it's time for your lease renewal, I'm gonna make sure gratuity is included in your rent. It's a little tip I learned from 2 guys take on real estate. So obviously this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. What the fuck? Why would I tip my landlord? Why would I tip my landlord? The person who decided to, buy a house they don't intend on living in just so they can make money on the less fortunate who can't afford to buy houses they do intend to live in? You clearly have enough money. Since you're buying a ton of houses, you don't need the extra. I can't afford to give you extra. Also, I don't know if you're aware of this, but 10% of my rent is much more than 10% the price of a coffee. One's 1 or 2 pounds. One's 100, 200 plus pounds. You know, there's a big difference. And I feel like tipping you 2 pounds, you're not going to appreciate because it doesn't really make a difference, right? And I also don't want to do that because I'd like to be able to live in a house. And being your landlord, I'm on call for you 24/7. I do everything for you. I'm here at an instant. Bullshit.
So for this section, I have no arguments with anything that she says here. No arguments with a single thing that she says in this section. I merely want to add, because I feel like there was a point here that she missed that she was so close to hitting. So close to hitting. And that's the fact that you tip a waitress because she barely gets paid minimum wage or less than minimum wage. She gets paid such a little amount that she requires a tip just to survive. Meanwhile, I'm paying you $1,000+ to live in this house. So therefore, you don't deserve a tip. Also, the fact that it is part of your job to fix anything that's wrong with the house. I am paying to be in this house. And first of all, I'm a pretty great tenant. I will fix things that break. I won't call a landlord unless it's something I literally can't do, that I have to have someone else do. I don't think I've ever called a landlord before in my life. But even then, this is your house. I could just leave, you know? I could just walk out and not even tell you that, hey, there's a gas leak or something like that. And then you have to deal with it because this is your house at the end of the day. If anything, you should be grateful that I'm coming to you and being like, hey, by the way, the heating doesn't work in your house all of a sudden. You should probably fix that. Plus, in the lease agreement, it says heating is included. It'll say things like gas is included, X is included. All these things are included in the bill. So therefore, if I don't have these things, it is now your job to make sure I get these things. Now, it doesn't have to be you personally, because you might say, oh, well, the tip is for the service of me coming out there and dealing with it. Because you don't actually have to service anything. You can send someone to come service the problem. There's no labor cost on your side. So there's really nothing worth tipping you. Plus, once again, I give you so much fudging money, so much cash, that comparing it to a minimum wage job is embarrassing. Especially since this isn't a job. It's a side hustle. How often do things break in a house? Maybe twice a year? You know? At most. Your heat might fuck up in the winter, so now you gotta come and fix that. You know? Maybe in the rainy season, some of the siding of the house gets fudged up. Maybe like hurricane season, some of the hot sides of the housing gets fudged up. That's it, though. 9 times out of 10, you know, I may have a lease for 2 years, but how many times am I ever going to ask you to come out? Twice. 4 times, essentially, in that entire lease time. So if you want a tip, well, you can suck my dick. It's that simple.
I'm so excited to see my new apartment.
Well, I'm really excited to be your new landlord. All right, so here's your new place.
Did you clean this? Oh my god, squatter! Nope! I'm not a squatter. I mailed myself a postcard here.
Wait, so I can't just throw you out? I have to go through a 6-month-long eviction process instead?
Yup, 6 months free rent.
Well, I guess that's better than the lawsuit I get from illegally throwing you out. It's a good thing I knew about this by filing 2 guys take on real estate.
I like this one, purely because I have just learned that in some states, such as California, if you have something like a bill mailed to an address and it has your name on it, they have to let you live there for free. They can't kick you out. And I love that. Thank you for telling me that. I'm now telling all of you that. So I appreciate that information. However, I really strongly hate all of the comments. Because, my good lord, I didn't expect them to be nice comments, right? Obviously, they're not good people. They obviously don't want people living rent-free in their empty houses. That's obviously not what they want to do. So, they have some things to say. Like, here are some comments that they have liked. I screenshot these comments because they have liked them. Squatters can't tell the police what happened if they have brain damage. Yeah, I'm sorry. If I came home and found someone there, they would get shot. Drag them out by their feet. It's such bullshit that squatters have any rights to property or dwellings they didn't buy or acquire through the proper process. Next time, get a huge bag of fleas and throw it in. And they replied, let's be real, she already has fleas. Okay, how about murder? Fixes all your issues. And they've liked all of those comments, which is horrifying and so disgusting. Bro, if I cannot fathom, if people are squatting in your empty flat, it is because they literally have nowhere else to go, right? Like, if people can afford housing, they're going to live in housing. They're only there because they can't afford anywhere else. And it was fucking empty. And if you don't want people who don't own the property or aren't renting the property to be in the property, maybe don't buy a bunch of property that you don't intend on living in and keeping it empty for so long. Because if you didn't own a ton of empty property, none of your property could have squatters in it because you wouldn't own any empty property. So, there's my solution to you. Don't own property that you don't need. Because you don't need it. And other people clearly do.
This is like the biggest issue I have with this video in general, and it's her opinion on property. It seems as though she believes that property in general is like bad. Like, you shouldn't own excess at all. Like, even the slightest excess is too much. I think that you shouldn't own like 200 properties. Like, you shouldn't own fucking 35 houses. I mean, not 35. You shouldn't own well, yes, also 35, but you shouldn't own an insane amount of houses because that's just taking it off the market for other people. Especially since 9 times out of 10, you're the piece of shit that way over hikes up your rent for no good reason. But I will say that I think that it's fair for someone to own a few houses. Like, you know, maybe you own, 5 houses, you know, and you have your normal house and maybe a second house for yourself as well for, a different situation. And then you have 3 houses that you rent out. As long as you're keeping your rent fair, I don't really see any issue with that. But I do have a problem with squatters. Now, she seems to believe that, like, you shouldn't be mad about the fact that you have a squatter. If you have a squatter, that's your problem. You shouldn't be owning property if you don't want there to potentially be squatters. And I partially agree with this, in the sense that I don't think that you deserve to kill a squatter for showing up in your house, but I also don't believe that a squatter deserves the amount of squatter rights that they get. If a squatter shows up in your house, they get to live there for 6 whole months. I think that's unfair because they really could show up at any moment. Say you own a property, like your house that you actually live in, and you end up in a coma for 2 months. And within that time, a squatter shows up into your house, starts getting bills in their name, and now they live there. Like, they are squatting there. So now they have squatters' rights to where you can't kick them out for 6 months. And you have to go through, like, lawyers and legal fees. Now you just came out of a coma, have all these medical bills, and have to pay all these legal fees because someone showed up in your house that you live in while you were dying. And obviously that's an extreme example. That's an insanely extreme example. But I truly think that I think that's at least slightly fair to say that squatters don't deserve as much rights as they get. I think that you should get squatters' rights if you squat in a house that is clearly abandoned. Like, obviously nobody lives there, then yeah, you deserve squatters' rights. But at the same time, I don't think you deserve 6 months squatters' rights. Like, when you get evicted, you don't get 6 months in eviction. If I got evicted, or if I decided to put up my, close off my lease or whatever, I get 2-3 months. 2 or 3 months, depending on my agreement. And I think squatters deserve that same amount of time. 2 or 3 months to leave the house. I also think that maybe getting, and it's not like getting squatters rights is easy. You have to get a bill in your name at that house. That takes time and money. So I think they deserve at least some standing in being a squatter. But at the same time, I don't think they deserve 6 months worth of leeway because they broke into a house and paid a bill.
Here, don't own property that you don't need because you don't need it, and other people clearly do. My God, yeah. So my counter to fucking murder is let people live, have empathy. Maybe is a solution. Not even empathy. I understand that not everyone feels empathy, but the understanding that people deserve to exist. And you're taking that away from people.
Hey, you can't beat me. I need the human right.
You can afford a brand new luxury car, but you won't pay your rent? He doesn't know what I know.
Hey!
He's not paying for rent, I'm not paying for heat.
Hey!
No rent, no water for you. Now penny showers anyway.
Hey! Hey, landlord, you can't turn off my services. That's a constructive eviction. I'm suing!
Hey, what? You're telling me I have to provide all my services even though you're not a paying customer? How did someone like you outsmart someone like me?
That's because you don't follow 2 guys take on real estate.
I love this dude at the end when he's doing the you don't follow thing, because they called 2 guys take on real estate, and instead of saying you don't follow 2 guys take on real estate on TikTok, he's always you guys don't follow 2 guys take on real estate.
2 guys take on real estate.
That sounds like they called 2 guys take and the app is real estate, and that's hilarious to me. And he makes that mistake literally every single time, and it's never not funny. It's so funny to me. Anyway, this one confused me so much when I watched it. I had to watch it a couple times because they're obviously on the landlord's side. But the way it ended made it seem like they were on the tenant's side. They're being don't let them do this to you. You have the right to be there. But they were more, I guess, giving advice to the landlord, being hey, landlords, if your tenant isn't paying you, you can't just turn off the electricity and the water. You have to go through a legal process, otherwise they'll sue you. But again, this is much more helpful for the tenants, I think, than the landlords, because now you know that if they do that, you can sue. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that anyway, but I don't know shit. So anyway, their green hair character, it's so funny because they seem to think that the only people who don't pay rent are blue-haired liberals, we're just the worst people to live in your flats. You don't want any of us to be your tenants because we don't believe in capitalism, we don't have real jobs, we don't shower, and we'll do anytime you do one thing wrong, I'm gonna sue you. And that is actually the complete opposite. I would believe a conservative person would actually be way worse a lot of the time. Like I said, I don't say a fucking word. I only say something if I really need to, because as much as I dislike landlords. I don't want to have to deal with them. I don't want to be an inconvenience. I don't want people in my house. I will only say something if I really, really need to. Like when we lost all electricity on the top floor of our house, which is where the office and both bedrooms are. We lost all electricity up there. Then I waited 2 days of trying to get it to work before I contacted the landlord. And then it took 3 weeks to be fixed, and I didn't want to rush it and be annoying, so I'm clearly a great tenant to have because I fuck myself over first. They keep using like housing as a human right as like a punchline, which is like, that says enough about their character, honestly. Like, housing's not a human right, you fucking idiot. Housing's a human right. Housing is a right for me to make money, dumbass. I can't imagine having that mindset. Like, viewing just like an actual human right as just a way to make money off of people, that's insane. Like, that's actually terrifying that people think like that. Anyway, I saved a bunch of TikTok.
See, this is another thing. I don't 100%. I believe that housing is a human right. I don't think quality of life is necessarily a human right. Like, in this, at least the way it seems to me is that she disagrees that the landlord should be allowed to cut off your utilities. But I believe that, like, if the utilities are in your contract and you're not paying your contract, then you should be allowed to get those shut off. I believe in, like, a 1 month rule where it's like, because, you know, some people just get backed up on rent. You know, everyone has struggles in life. But I believe, like, you know, if you've gone, let's say, 2 months, 3 months without paying rent, then you deserve to have your utilities shut off because you're not paying your side of the contract. Now, I do believe that housing is a right. Everyone deserves to live in a house, but I don't necessarily believe that everyone deserves to live in a house comfortably. I believe that, like, some things you have to earn. I believe that is how life should work, is that, like, your bare necessities, being in a home with food and water, those are all human rights. Oh, and being safe. But things like heat, electricity, heat, electricity, hot water. I feel like these things are things that you need to pay for. I also think that, like, you know, when I say, like, housing is a right, you don't deserve a mansion necessarily. You know, as a right, you deserve something you can live in, like a studio apartment. It's for, you know, depending on how many people live in the house. But if you're one person, like, a studio apartment is essentially what is the right. You have the right to at least a studio apartment, but you don't have the right to, you know, hot water, things like that. I could maybe say electricity, because electricity is somewhat important. You got to keep your food refrigerated, and if you take away your electricity, then you essentially take away your ability to have, food. So I would say electricity could also be considered a human right. But heat specifically, I don't think is a human right, because of the fact that you can find other ways around heat, and heating is a very specific thing. Like, I don't use the heat in my house. I have a space heater. So I'm technically using my electricity bill. I also have a bunch of, like, blankets and stuff. I believe that, you know, heating in a house, central air or whatever, you know, stuff like that, heating vents, things like those aren't necessarily rights, because those kind of feel like luxuries. And I know that in the winter you can die from, like, being too cold. But I believe there are other ways around that. Like, once again, you have electricity, so you can get, like, a space heater. Alright, guys, I'm gonna end the video here. I know this was a shorter one. Or maybe it's not, actually. I talked for a long time. I wanted to go more in depth, probably, you know, watch a few more of Queer Kiwi's videos. The problem is that, like, they're all, like, pretty good. Like, I'm in the middle of watching this one, and I have, like, slight little, like, disagreements on, like, the tiniest little thing, or, like, just the wording of something, and that just seems so petty to the point where I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna extend this video with semantics, essentially. That's not gonna happen. The Queer Kiwi, she makes good videos. I've been watching her for a while now. I actually, when I found her, which was a few months ago, I binged watched essentially every single video that she made. I don't think I got all of them because she's made so many, but I think I've gotten a staunch majority. Like, I've definitely watched like a good 80 to 90% of all of her videos. So, I mean, check her out. She makes good content. Check her out. Don't be a hating asshole. I like critiquing people whose content I genuinely enjoy. So when there's things worth talking about, or things that I would like her to expand upon, or like give her opinion on, I would hope that she sees this video. And obviously she doesn't have to make her own video responding, because that's asking too much of her. But I would hope maybe she just shoots like a comment giving her opinion on the points that I brought up. Thank you all for watching the video. Hope you had a great time. And I will see you guys later.